Hey everyone, it's Michael B. Thank you so much for spending Monday night with me once again. Tonight on the show, we're going to have a little bit of fun. We're going to clear the air about some stuff that's going on that's really confusing to me. And speaking of confusing, we're also going to talk about what's going on with Arcade1Up's The Fast and the Furious. As most of you guys know, Thursday on Game Time, Travis, MCP, other people were on. They were talking about Arcade1Up's The Fast and the Furious, talking about the tracks, the cars involved. And it seems like this is a situation where Arcade1Up is announcing two games, but it might only be elements of one game split into two. It's really confusing. It's not as straightforward as it seems. It's not a one game cab, it's still a two game cab, but we're going to try to wrap our heads around this and understand what the hell is going on. Anyways, buckle up, Buttercups. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I'm so excited to do this, and I've got headphones on because I may even have a guest or two at some point. This is Chillin' Chat. What's my name? With Michael B. All right, guys, I got to get chat up on the screen here. I usually just use OBS and do the stream normally right through my computer, but I can never have guests on. We use this new program for Super Game Room Dudes. I have access to it, so I decided to start doing it. And as you can see, I can have the chat listed on the screen. I can invite people to join. So I'm going to try this out for a little while and see how this works out. I mean, we're already paying for it. Might as well freaking use it, right? Thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight. Welcome to another episode of Chill and Chat with Michael B. Now, I do want to clear something up right off the bat. Chill and Chat is a term people use for a type of stream. Like, basically, people always have chill and chats. It's just a relaxing stream. Like, for example, 19K Fox last night hosted a chill and chat. Now, I titled the show Chill and Chat not to be a gatekeeper of the term. I appreciate when anybody else wants to do one. The idea behind it is my show is specific, that you're chilling and chatting with Michael B. I have another game streaming show. Oh my God, Kat, could you absolutely claw through that box any louder? Can you guys hear that as much as I can? I've got to move these kitty litters. Dear God. So, anyways, the idea behind it, I do another gaming show where it's called Game and Watch with Michael B. It's just kind of stupid. It's a game you watch, and it's with me, Michael B. So that's the idea behind it. Don't ever give anybody a hard time for using Chill and Chat, even though 19K Fox owes me all his super chats from last night. That's the way it works. All rights reserved, Andy's Game Room says. Oh man, it is a nightmare. I have got to start putting the kitty litters outside and locking this door. Anyways, tonight, the main topic is going to be Fast and the Furious. So much has been said about this in the last couple days. B did a really, really great video on it yesterday, going into detail and talking about the differences. I want to kind of wrap my head around this. And I alluded to it in the name of the show. Fast and the Furious is only one game. Is it really that big a deal? And that's kind of what we're going to talk about here. Anyways, before we get started with that, a couple of housekeeping items. If you guys are in Canada, you can see I've got a Tim Hortons cup right here. This is a big week in Canada because it's actually Smile Cookie Week. So what Smile Cookies do is Tim Hortons run this promotion for a week in Canada, sometimes twice a year, where they sell these cookies for like $1.50. They're just big chocolate chip cookies, a little bit of icing on them. They make a smiley face. But what they do is they turn around and they give the proceeds from the Smile cookies out to local charities. So if you're in Canada, you're by a Tim Hortons, go buy some Smile cookies, support local charities, and have a tasty treat. You should rephrase Chill and Chat to Arcade and Chill. I have heard the ladies love it. All right. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was last week. For anybody that tuned into my show, what I talked about last week on the show was, is Arcade1Up at Games or iArcade in danger of going out of business? And what mystifies me is somehow people took that title and the thumbnail I put up there, and they basically misconstrued what the show was about, or they tried to change the narrative of what the show was about to either white knight to a community or something like that. It's just bizarre. The purpose of my show last week, as I've restated, done community posts, said on my Twitter feed as well, was to in fact take the community rumors about certain companies in the community and turn it on its side and explain that right now we are in an economic downturn. All companies are facing this. You know, when this home arcade concept and market boomed is during the pandemic when we were all stuck home. People weren't spending money on vacations. People weren't spending money going out to restaurants. People were only spending money kind of in their homes. They didn't even have to pay for gas for most people. They could just work from home. So they had a lot more disposable income. Fast forward, sorry guys, still trying to get over this cold. Fast forward 3 years later, and we're out of that phase now, and there's less money to be spent at home. And, you know, prices have gone up for materials. The prices of these companies have gone up. So, you know, basically costs have gone up, demand's gone down, and supply has been impacted by that. So showing that interest in one company is currently down and there might be some malcontent in the community, I brought this up because the rumors were about iArcade, which I didn't agree with. And I wanted to constructively go through a process of explaining, hey, last year at Games, they didn't release any new products. They had a very small release. However, this year, they're ready to rebound and they're releasing 2 new products. So while last year people thought they might be going out of business, next year, this year that we're currently in, they announced new products and there's no more questions. Then I wanted to look at Arcade1Up and say, everybody's saying Arcade1Up is totally fine. But then again, there's other factors that you can look at to say, oh no, this company is actually struggling a little bit, when I brought up the fact that they just went through layoffs and they're coming out with fewer releases this year. But somehow, I'm sorry guys, man, oh man, this cold has been kicking my ass for weeks. So somehow, some people in the community took it as either an iArcade hate stream. If you follow me on Twitter, I got blasted with people saying At Games was going out of business. It was crazy. So I think what most people need to do, here's some advice. Before you go out and you make content or you make a social media post or you overreact, take some time to actually understand the material that you're commenting on before reporting on it or trying to besmirch somebody to put yourself ahead. It certainly makes you look like you don't know what you're talking about. The most intelligent thing to do when you don't know what you're talking about is to not open your mouth. The worst thing you can do, open your mouth, say something dumb, and show everybody that you really are like that. So that's just the point I want to put across there. Again, if you watched all through my stream last week, you would have saw what I'm laying down. None of these companies are going out of business. The economy is not great right now, and these companies are redefining, reinventing themselves to prepare to go forward in the future. That was the whole purpose. Anyways, with that off my chest, and hopefully some of this phlegm, let's move on to Fast and the Furious. So, in the Fast and the Furious with Arcade1Up, if you tuned into Game Time this past Thursday, you would have noticed that Travis MCP was on the show, joined by the host, and it was kind of broke down to, yes, Bill's Retro Gaming Show. Excellent comment here. Let me bring that up on screen. That's what I was trying to say, but I failed at it. Here it is. Better to be quiet and let everybody think you're a fool than open your mouth and remove all doubt. That's exactly the statement I was looking for. So, come on, Mike, get it together. So anyways, moving forward, the Fast and the Furious, Thursday on Game Time, it was revealed that the Fast and the Furious wasn't exactly what it was advertised as. Instead of 2 separate arcade ROMs being on one cabinet, it is in fact one arcade ROM broke down into 2 separate games to make up Fast and the Furious. So Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift apparently split in half to make the 2 games. But before we get into that, I do have a super chat here from Console Fanboy 999. Thank you very much, Zohar. You shouldn't do that. I know you're getting ready to go to a convention. Serious question. Is it considered false advertising if they're saying it's Fast and the Furious on the box when it's really not that game at all. It's blatantly lying to consumers, right? It's interesting that you bring that up because what I want to say, what I want to say is honestly, we're going to talk about this tonight because this is not the first time this has happened with Arcade1Up and with Raw Thrills. So I will start there. For anybody out there that's actually purchased the Big Buck Hunter cabinet from Arcade1Up through Raw Thrills previously, it lists it on the box as having 4 games. So you get, I can't remember the 4 games off the top of my head now, but you get Big Buck Hunter Pro, I think it's Big Buck Hunter, I don't know what it is, Open Season, Big Buck Hunter Safari, and Big Buck Hunter Outback. But here's the crazy thing about that. When you actually go into the game, there's only 2 games to choose from. You only either get Big Buck Hunter or you get Big Buck Hunter Outback or Safari, whatever it is, Big Buck Hunter World. This is not the first time that people from Arcade1Up, not necessarily, but Raw Thrills, have done a port to an Arcade1Up cabinet where they took elements and combined them from 2 games and made it look like more than one. So with that game specifically, both of these, obviously this is a continuation of Big Buck Hunter. So the next Big Buck Hunter game was the same game but expanded upon. So what they did was they took all the tracks from both games and added them into one. So they advertised both games because you get every element of both game, but it's not really 2 games. You know what I mean? You can see where this is going. So with Big Buck Hunter and with Big Buck Hunter Outback, you can only choose one or the other, but you get every element of both games because they were continued. If that makes sense, let me know in the chat. So it's not the first time this has happened between Arcade1Up and Raw Thrills. 4 games on Big Buck Hunter, but you really only get 2. If you can tell me how to get to the 4 games, I'd love to know because honestly, it's just 2. Gallagher Guy says that's kind of slimy. Maybe it is, but what I'm saying is there's a precedent already set in the community from Arcade1Up and Raw Thrills. They have done this before. So we get to where we are now, and I'm going to bring up B's video because no math on Monday, Mike. What's crazy is I actually did not have any of this throat stuff, at all until the show started. And I don't know what it is. The cat moving the kitty litter around, I guess. Oh my God. Trying to catch up here. Andy's Game Room says half truthy. Maybe. But let's get into that. So I want to bring this up on screen. B-Kong did an excellent video yesterday, but oh, here he comes. Troublemaker B-Kong. But you don't get every element of both games of Fast and Furious. But yeah, Big Buck was similar. Those were true expansion, though. Same gameplay, just more scenes to shoot animals. And B, since you're here in the chat, you could join. B might join us later because I do want to discuss this with him. I also reached out to She-Lion earlier, and I wanted to get her on to kind of, give us more of an experience. But I was lucky enough. I did have a long chat with She-Lion earlier because she's really an expert in the Fast and Furious arcade games, and I'm not. So I wanted to kind of answer some of this stuff like B's saying. Is it really the same experience or is it not? So that's kind of what we're going to talk about. But before we go any further, I do want to bring up B's video. And, oh. So I'm going to bring up entire screen 2. And I'll just hit play here. And I will bring this on screen for you guys. So this was B's video yesterday, Furious about Arcade1Up, the Fast and Furious. If you haven't watched it, I'm not going to go into the detail that B did because B did an awesome job, like really analytical, breaking down the differences between the 2 games. Ballet. Oh, that's the bears in the little cars, right? So anyways, B did an excellent job. Go check out B-Kong's video. He really analytically broke down the differences between the 2 games from everything that's presented. And if you want to know and you want to get some feedback as well, but let me just bring this up here because there's no good way to do this. If you check out the Arcade1Up app, and I'm sure B did yesterday, it actually lists details for both the games, and this is kind of where his hard information came from the app itself, going in and looking at the courses, cars, features on both of the Fast and the Furious games. Bird says, wait, it's not the Fast and the Furious? I thought the other game. That's funny. What? It's not two games? I thought the games were the Fast and the other game was Furious. So, anyways, let me bring that off screen. So, whenever I hear about the sit down racing cabs, I hear P-Dub's voice from his Outrun sit down review saying, "You're going to look like a doofus." I don't know if you look like a doofus so much. It's just weird sitting on the floor. Really did not like those sit down cabs. Anyways, go check out B's video because he did a very analytical look at this. I'm dying here. Oh. So another $4.99 super chat from Console Fanboy. Again, you don't have to do that, man. Thank you very much. Nice to know they not only lie privately to their customers behind the scenes, but publicly too. Good, their morals are the same across the board. I'm sorry that happened to you, Console Fanboy, and I'm sorry you feel that way. Thank you very much for the super chat. So this is kind of an awkward one because the question is it two games or is it one? Because I know B is saying there's elements of the first game that are missing that you won't get on the second game. You know, there's elements from the first game that are missing because in the second game they weren't included, but there's also an argument to be made that the entire first game essentially is found in the second game. So there's a question of, did Raw Thrills look at this and say, okay, there's only so much space or data management on this chipset. What's the best way for us to port these two large, hard to emulate games onto Arcade1Up's chipset and make it work? And they looked at the entire track course from Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift and said, there's a duplication of assets here. Why don't we move the assets that are duplicated from game 2 over to game 1? And I'll make an analogy here that everybody's going to get really mad at, but say, for example, you look at Arcade1Up's first set of cabs. They had a Capcom Street Fighter cab that was Street Fighter Championship Edition, and it came with 3 games, Street Fighter 2 Championship Edition, Super Street Fighter 2, and then Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. Now, say, for example, that you were getting Super Street Fighter 2, and then you were also getting Street Fighter 2 Championship Edition. However, they didn't have enough space on the chip for Street Fighter 2 Champion Edition's roster, so they took the roster from Super Street Fighter 2, just the Championship Edition roster, and moved it into Street Fighter 2 Championship Edition. That's actually how they made the game. Essentially, this is what Raw Thrills did to make Fast and the Furious, the Arcade1Up cabinet, the Fast and the Furious, and the Fast and the Furious Drift. I don't know if that makes sense, but in my head, this is the best way I'm trying to understand it. There you go. Sheline Gaming. Thank you very much. Sheline, again, had a long call with me earlier today. She gave me a lot of advice on this, so there we go. Technically, it was an upgrade kit, but both games also require external security encryption keys. So I learned that for the first time today as well. Guys, I'm dying here. I'm sorry. So that's the way I kind of looked at it was, is this a situation where in order to fit it, they took what they thought was a duplication of assets and moved it over? No, Charlie Chuck, I'm not saying I'm okay with it. I'm just trying to understand how it happened. I also reached out to Arcade1Up and tried to get some information there, like if they could give us some intel on how Raw Thrills do this with their porting, how they make up the game, and how they make it work. But unfortunately, nobody got back to me. So I was a little bit disappointed by that, but there we are. So where we stand right now, like I said, is the Fast and the Furious. You're getting 2 games, but you're getting 2 games that are pieced together from assets that all come from Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift, as far as I can tell. Now the question is, do you feel that you're only getting 1 game if that's the case? Because you are getting all the tracks from Fast and the Furious, and you're still getting all the tracks that you would get from Tokyo Drift. It's just, like people are saying, they're split across 2 games, but you still get everything that you're looking for. Console Kits has a great comment here. Hold on, I brought up Gallagher guys by accident. No sarcasm. I don't think it's space. They probably just ported the latest source code to run on 1UP's platform, then configured the one games as two. That's a very good chance as well. Console Fanboy says, Mike, so this mean most of the games moving forward will be missing something since we keep buying these unfinished products? Well, it's funny you say that, Console Fanboy, because here's the thing about Fast and Furious, and I'm not trying to be defensive here, but I'm trying to play devil's advocate on this because so far most of the feedback has been super negative. So there's been a load of games that have come out from Arcade1Up, and this is not new, that involve certain assets that were in the original game that they just can't use in these games going forward. You go back to even Outrun. Outrun is a good example because in Outrun, there was a very specific car used for Outrun. It was the Testarossa. But unfortunately, Arcade1Up couldn't get the license for the Testarossa. So, we didn't get the sticker on the steering wheel, and they had to modify the car. I think in the original ports of the game to the Sega Genesis and stuff, they might actually modified some of those ports as well. I just had something crazy happen where I got this loud noise come in. I don't know. So there was certain elements of the Fast and the Furious that were going to be missing anyways, just because of licenses. Going back to B's video, I'll just bring up Frozen B here and I'll press play again. B did a great job explaining the car selection, that certain cars were going to be missing from the game. And this comes down to the exact same issue with licensing as well. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to make it full screen. This goes back to the same issue with licensing as well, that certain car licenses, they were just never going to get. So they were going to be removed from the game anyways. And that's what you're dealing with. When you take a port of a game or a game that came out 20 plus years ago, and then you try to reuse the licenses, sometimes it's financial factors, sometimes it's availability. You just can't get certain things licensed to go in the game. You can't, it's not like, emulation where you just go get a ROM off the internet, stick it on your modded cab, and you're playing the original game. There's a lot of work that goes to making these games work from their original format. And Arcade1Up have always kind of danced around this. You look at NBA Jam, players were removed. You look at NFL Bullets, not only were players removed, they actually had to change elements of the gameplay to get the NFL to agree to license it out. So, anyways, we were always going to lose certain elements. Now, what I do agree with and what I do find a little bit upsetting is the fact that there's certain elements of the racing in the first one, like the upgrades and stuff like that, that aren't going to be in the Fast and the Furious. So that's where B comes in and he says, are we actually getting the real game? Because there's certain elements that are going to be missing, because they're going to be from Fast and the Furious Drift and not the Fast and the Furious. So question then comes is, do you guys care? Like, does it matter to you? So this is really where I want to go with this, because everybody's fixated now on the fact that they're like, whoa, this isn't an arcade accurate port. This is not really the Fast and the Furious. We're getting the Fast and the Furious and we're getting the Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift, but it's a cut in half version. And that might be 100% true. But at the end of the day, I think most consumers are just going to be happy to get a racing game, and they don't really care. I'm one of the people that, look, here we go. Paul Minderman, of course we care. Michael B, why would we not? Yes, it matters. Come on, man. Deputy Van Halen. So yes, throw it up there. Like, if it matters to you, you're upset by this. I mean, it's an easy solution. Don't buy the game. It's simple. I encourage you not to. Like, I will give an example. Say, for example, Arcade1Up released a Robotron, but they had to take this, and this out. I would be upset because I'm a huge fan of the original game. I want it to play like the original. I don't want concessions. I'd be upset. WrestleFest is another example. WrestleFest is one of my favorite arcade games of all time. But if Arcade1Up did a WrestleFest and it's not the WrestleFest I remember, I'd be upset. I wouldn't want it. But what I'm saying is, the average consumer, are they going to care that the Fast and the Furious is slightly different from what they exactly remembered? And I was trying to understand that, because I was trying to understand, what's the huge difference with this here? How does it play differently? And She Lion, if you're still at soccer practice, I apologize, but you're still welcome to come on. I'll make sure I'm going to send you a link right now if you want to pop on. If you're home, or if you get home and I'm still on, you want to come on, here it comes. I just got to find you here because you'd be the best one to explain this, but I'm going to explain what you said to me anyways. So, well, it's not accurate, so it matters a lot. Stop making neutered versions. I don't disagree with you, Charlie Chuck. Like, if you can't make the original, there's going to be people that don't want it. I never chose Ted DiBiase. Ted DiBiase is a fun character. WrestleFest was either Mr. Perfect or Jake the Snake. Had to be. So, anyways, I talked to She Lion and I said, She Lion, I don't know the Fast and the Furious. I'm not familiar with it at all. I don't know the game. So I'm not really in a position to speak about this. Can you explain to me what the difference between the two games are? Like, if they're taking the tracks and cars from the Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift and using those elements to build a new version of the Fast and the Furious that people can play, will people notice a difference from the way the original Fast and Furious played? And what she told me was the differences are minute in the gameplay itself. Minute. So there might be small differences in the way the drifting works, other things like that, but essentially it's the same game. In fact, Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift is a refined version of the original Fast and the Furious, includes all the same tracks, not necessarily all the same cars, because again, time affects licenses and availability. So you're not getting the same cars, but essentially you're getting the same game and done in a better, more complete version. This is the updated version. Then you're also going to take into account that this is not some third-party company that's doing the port or the ROM versions that are coming to this. It's Raw Thrills themselves. Eugene Jarvis, his company, this is their baby, their game. They're building this and putting it on the Arcade1Up platform to showcase their product. So there you go. I just want to throw that information out there because right now everybody's kind of focusing on, oh, this is crap. It's like really negative without looking at the devil's advocate side of it. Anyways, I do want to bring up the chat here really quickly. I want to check the poll because I did ask at the beginning of the show if this news about the Fast and the Furious, how the Fast and the Furious is not essentially going to be the original game. It's the original game made up from elements and assets from the Fast and the Furious Drift, if that would impact your buying decision. So let's see what you guys, the audience and the fan base, feel. And we are split, pretty much split right down the middle. 53% are saying yes, it does impact their buying decision. 47% are saying no. But lucky enough, even though my voice was slowly going and now it's coming back, one of my people that I invited to be on the show tonight, the person who made the video, the troublemaker who's causing and stirring up drama, B Kong.
Such a troublemaker, man. Thanks for having me on and showing that video. It's the first time he actually watched the video and I didn't have to bug him. He was like, I actually watched the video of yours. He's like, I don't watch other stuff.
Oh, don't get too ahead of yourself, B. I was taking care of my kids yesterday and stuff.
Setting
They were
expectations.
watching, what's it called? This, I can't remember the name of it, but it's the singing lady that does this baby learning videos and stuff like that. So you were my only escape at the time.
Got it. I did want to just mention one thing and clarify, because I guess as you clarify video, I don't think I was ever hating the gameplay itself. I think the game, from the videos that we've seen so far, and I do still want to see the link cab, I think the game will still play fine with the cab, with the 8 cars that they have, the way that they've released it and what they've said so far. I think from anybody who's a casual, like you were saying, is going to enjoy the gameplay experience. I don't think that was in question at all. I think for me, it was highlighting the fact of the skin of the cabinets being reflective of the original game when the elements of that game wasn't there. I think that was my biggest thing that really burned me of how it was marketed and published, more than the gameplay itself. I think, like, you're right. Brawl Thrills is porting it. There's probably going to be no issue with the gameplay itself. I trust Sheila saying that the gameplay is going to be similar, that the tracks are the same. But I know the more I learned, the more I just thought it was not reflective of the cabinet itself,
Yeah.
right? And when you have an issue with the marquee game being the marquee game, and like that's the one that has the most liberties taken from it. If they had skinned it drift, for example, I think, from an authenticity standpoint, it's like it's more accurate to say it's a drift cabinet than it is a Fast and Furious cabinet.
Well, I'll go further than that. I don't think it's fair to really market it as drift either, because from what I understand, in drift, you're going to lose the tracks that were from the first game. They're not going to be in the version of drift. You have to play Fast and the Furious.
That's true.
To play those versions. So
yeah,
when I talked to Sheila about it earlier, and what we talked about was, honestly, one of the things I hated that Arcade1Up did was they called it NFL Blitz Legends, and they said it was this new game. Like, that bothered me. But I'm going to sound like a hypocrite here, because wouldn't it have been better for Arcade1Up to say, this is Fast and the Furious Legends?
Yeah, it's essentially that. Hello, Miss Expert from the soccer field.
What's up?
Right off the pitch.
Sorry, is it like really loud in here?
No, not at all. You're good. I was just telling B, Jade, about how we had a conversation earlier, and one of the suggestions we made was, instead of calling it the Fast and the Furious or the Fast and the Furious Drift, maybe it would have been better if they represented this game as what it is. It's a new port of the games, and just called it like Fast and the Furious Legends.
Sorry, you're gonna have to have just audio. But yeah, I mean, I definitely feel that. I just feel like the other thing is too, I mean, when we spoke earlier, we kind of talked about this, is like, it's just basically drift with 8 cars. And, they like chopped out that, like the chunk of tracks, the 12 tracks, and then just like cloned it and slapped a label on it calling that Fast and Furious. So like I don't even know if like Legends is the right thing, because you're not even getting like a remake of the Fast and Furious. You know what I mean?
So what would you call it then? Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift modern?
No, I just mean to say, like, it's just basically drift. All they did was pull the tracks out, like I said, and then like, cloned the same game mechanics and everything, and then slapped a label on it. So it's like, if it was like Legends or something, then you would think it would still actually have like the separate game, the Fast and the Furious, with like those overlays and like those racing mechanics and all that. Like, you could even say like, all right, we're still going to interchange these cars, but we still like developed or ported like the actual 2004 game separate from the 2007 game, which they did not do with this.
So knowing what you guys know, do you feel that people aren't getting the Fast and the Furious at all? Like, you're just not getting the game? Or are you getting it just modified with the drift version? I know it's a stupid question, but I gotta ask.
I'll start, and then Sheila can go. She has more experience playing the real arcade versions of these, which I think, I'm looking forward to your review of it. I've messed around with the emulated versions of them over the last week. I know that the even hour-long gameplay that I did of Fast and Furious a week ago, just to see what the demo gameplay, that upgrade system, the cars I was using, the interface, like all of that won't be on the actual Fast and Furious cabinet. So like that, there's, one of the things they boasted was there's 1,250 possible combinations of upgrades per car. But there's less than that on the real Fast and Furious game, because some of those parts weren't available in the original one. So that's like, it's slightly different. And I haven't played the game enough to know that every car also has stats. There's like stats given to each car on acceleration, max speed, like driving. Like, you could be playing the game better competitively if you had a car with better stats or something like that. So I think if I don't know the programming, if it's just face level or if it's truly like stats. Like Mario Kart, you can kind of tell the difference between the stats. I don't know if this is the same thing, but that could impact if you're driving and you wanted to play something like that. So I think that missing element, I don't think it's representative of the original game, because of the cars that you can play in Fast and Furious version, 6 out of the 8 of them weren't in the original game. I think that's kind of my other thing. You're driving a Saline on the original Fast and Furious tracks, but that car didn't exist in the original game. So like, would you say you're playing the original game if you have a car that wasn't there? If they brought it back, maybe there's some fixes. Maybe they do bring back some of the cars from the first game and then they ported it there. Now you kind of have elements of that original game back in it on Drift. Maybe that's a future thing that, hey, it could be done if on Wi-Fi updates. Maybe that's a solution that they're looking into, possibly to kind of make this more accurate.
Jade?
There's a super chat from Stringer Films, by the way.
I'm going to get to those in a second. I just wanted to let Jade retort to you.
Well, I mean, like I totally hear what you're saying, B, and I'm not going to disagree with you, just because like I don't know, like all I know, like the cold hard facts right now are that we have Drift, and then they made Fast and the Furious out of Drift, basically. So, to me, like with all the stats and stuff like that, like whatever's there, whatever like variables are going to be there, like I'm not really even going to be able to like know or speak on it until like it's sitting in front of me and I can like look at it and really be like, okay, this is different, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I did a stupid amount of like comparisons and research to see which cars are which. I was like, these are the 8 cars. Wait a second. And like I screenshotted everything and was like, and so here's what I did do, because you said you reached out to Arcade1Up. I actually also sent my research to John just to see what he would say about it. And he said he was going to look into it as well. And I did hear back from him via chat saying that everything that was in my video to date right now was accurate. So I did have at least that update to share that I heard back. In terms of what they're going to do about it, I don't know, but at least some people were, John, for example, now is now made aware, and he wasn't, that it was that level of difference, because I don't know if in his role, once he secures it, I don't know how involved he's on the development side. But, Travis used to say this a lot too on his recent streams that he's been on, that it does sound like, some arms of the company aren't talking to other arms, right? If you have the person that secures a licensing, there's a whole other team that does development, and maybe he doesn't need to know, but the marketing team probably should know some of these things, right? I think it would be great for them if they put out more what it actually is, rather than trying to disguise it as the big marketing. So I think that's where my biggest issue comes from. It's just how they're marketing it more than anything.
So I want to get this. Oh, sorry, Jade, you go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just gonna say, like, to kind of like to finish off and answer your question, like just about whether or not it's gonna be, like what the port is gonna be, like if it's gonna equal like something that you would have played in the arcade. Like, I mean, to answer your question, like yes and no, because you're gonna get like most of the elements of the gameplay, I think. But you're not. It's definitely, you're not gonna get Fast and Furious like the first one. You're really not getting that. What you're really getting is the upgraded Drift. Like that's just what you're going to be getting. And then the cars, as far as the cars go, like technically in Drift, I think there was only 12 cars and you're getting 8, so that's 4 cut out of there. I mean, and that's being generous, because if you did actually get the first game, I think there was like, I don't know, 16 cars in there or something, maybe
there was
more.
12 and then 2 more unlockable ones that I never got to. But so yeah,
Okay.
You didn't get the Dodge cars, and you don't have the Mazda cars in the Drift version.
Something I did bring up on the stream earlier, we were going to lose cars anyways. It's just a licensing thing, right? So
right. And that's what I was going to say. Like all of the licensing stuff that goes along with it is like pretty much out of Arcade1Up's hands, and this is just a fact. Like I'm not trying to defend Arcade1Up. I don't care. Like it's just a fact. Like it's out of their hands. It's almost in some ways out of Raw Thrill's hands. I mean, if you go look at the roster for their latest Fast and Furious game, there's 8 cars, and a few of them are very, very similar to what is in this port that they're doing. So, you know, as far as the game goes and getting a port, if you're looking for a racing game that is going to be similar to cruising, like I think you're going to get that. If you're looking for, you know, 1-to-1 arcade port, there's no way in hell you set your expectations to that it's going to be Raw Thrills port of the game, but it's not going to be 1-to-1 to the arcade in the sense of like perfect.
Dude, but 19K Fox has the best solution.
I saw
right?
it, the Nissan Skyline. We'll get there.
Yeah.
A couple. I want to go to the super chats, but I just got a quick question. 360's in the chat. I'm not familiar enough with the game to comment on this, so I wanted to ask Jade and B. You can comment on it too. Drift just uses the old tracks, but all the aesthetics were Japan themed to match the perfect film Tokyo Drift. So, did they change anything graphically with the courses for the updated game that it's also going to be changed when we play it? Is that another difference between the two games?
It looks like
or is it the exact same tracks?
It looks like they used the exact same tracks from the Drift version of the game. Yeah, so like, but as far as like branding and all that stuff goes, like things that you might have seen in the game, like I was reading up on this, and there's like a lot of things that they would have had to change, like branding wise, like on signs and stuff like that, like promoting things that were like a big deal back then, but like now they don't have the licenses to promote those things.
Yeah, we talked to John D about that one time with pole position. He was like, do you really want to play pole position where like all the branding's out? Like Marlboro cigarettes, they're gone. So yeah, that's a pretty common thing. Any in-game advertisement would have to be taken out as well. All right, couple super chats I want to get through. Stringer Films, most positive guy in the world. Jade, you know Stringer as well, don't you?
Yeah.
$2 super chat. You're all legends in my book. Love you, Stringer. You're a good dude. $1.99 super chat from Console Fanboy. WrestleFest Legends with 2 characters confirmed. So, I talked about WrestleFest on this show before one time. If they do it, there's obviously going to have to be some changes. Again, with licensing, it's the same issue again. So, obviously, some people are going to come out of the game. Is it still WrestleFest at that time, or is it something else? Thank you for the super chat, Console Fanboy. Stringer Films again, $2 super chat. Fast and the Furious Family Edition on the Infinity Game Board. You can get it here today. I think we're up to date there now, guys. So, yeah. Jade, you mentioned this earlier, and I'll get you to say it again, and B, you can comment on this as well. So when the Fast and Furious comes out, one of the things I'm interested in is I think people in the community were very excited about it. They're very excited about it because it had 2 games. But this is going to be something entirely different, and this is a communication issue, but the game should still be fun, right? Like, I mean, the people that pre-ordered it, it's not like they've got a nightmare on their hands.
Oh, sorry.
No. I was leading into you. You go ahead.
Yeah, well, in my opinion, does it have the potential to still be fun? Absolutely. I mean, so I had gotten Drift, and I put it in my sit-down cab, and literally my security encryption dongle just like took a dump on me. It just broke. So I only played it a little bit, but I was like, oh, I want to leave this in here because it's cool. It's got like, you know, the additional tracks and some extra stuff. So I was like, I'm gonna leave it in here and play it more. So I mean, like, as far as like the options of tracks and cars and the type of racing that it is, like, it almost kind of reminds me of like Cruise and Blast kind of, just as far as like the speed and like all the cool little things you can do, like popping wheelies and flipping your car around and just like these huge extreme jumps. As far as like the gameplay goes, like, I think there's a potential for it to be like still a very fun racing game. You know, it just really comes down to like, it's just very subjective, like, to whether or not people want to spend the money on it. You know, like, I feel like there's all this bad stigma around it now, and it's like, even if the game was fun, to say it's fun at this point, everybody's gonna be like, "Oh, you're full of shit."
Yeah, I know.
Sorry, I don't know if you can cuss on
You
this.
can already see it in the chat.
Sorry, I'm a shitster, right? So troublemaker, putting the
God
bad
damn
juju
you,
in the
B
game.
Kong.
So I think I've always said that while I was not nostalgic for the game, I am nostalgic for the franchise. That first movie, Fast and Furious, was very iconic to me. I owned a Rice Rocket back in the day. I had a Honda Accord Coupe with a body kit and, you know, neon glow and Altezas. Like I was a wannabe race car driver. So certain cars do have nostalgia for me. And so somebody picking up the cabinet casually, seeing things like the Mitsubishi Eclipse on the cabinet, but then not being able to play that car in the game, or a Supra, or like, you know, that again, the art is from the original movie. Even though that cabinet came out after the second movie was released,
Yeah.
that cabinet art screams original Fast and Furious. So Toyota
Yeah.
Supra, Mitsubishi Eclipse, Mazda RX-7, those are like the marquee cars that I would want to play if I was playing that game. So a casual person may pick it up and be like, oh, this is cool. And then they look at the cars list. And even though it may play fun, it may play great, half of this experience is about nostalgia and being able to race playing the cars that I remember from the movie. That missing element would be a sore spot for me as a consumer buying it. I
Yeah,
think it'll still be fun,
I
but that's
definitely,
yeah.
I definitely agree with that.
Mhm.
I just think like when I was talking about it, I'm just talking about like from the perspective of just purely picking up a
Of the
racing
game.
game, and playing it,
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
without any like real attachment to it. But I agree that like that's obviously going to be a letdown. I mean, the Supra's on the marquee, you got the Eclipse on the side, and in the first one they only had the 2004 Eclipse, which coincidentally, you know, was the year that the game was made. So I
Yeah.
think you and me talked about that. Be like they
Yeah,
did
it's not
that.
even the original Eclipse from the
Yeah,
movie,
and
but it's an
they're
Eclipse, right? So
like buy the 2004 Eclipse here, play it in this game.
yeah. So they already
So
did that. So the
yeah,
drift, when you play the real arcade version and I'm just playing the port, so the car roster that's there, it's not a true expansion because it changes all the cars too, right? Like you think expansion would be like keeping the same cars and adding more,
yeah,
but
I think they called it like an upgrade kit
an
or
upgrade kit.
something.
Okay.
But yeah,
Mm.
so they did take out some of the cars, and I'm just guessing. This is just a shot in the dark, but probably part of the reason this is like what 3 years later that they took out some of the cars was due to licensing.
Mhm.
If I had to guess, like I'm almost certain of it. Um, so that would be my guess as to why they took some of Drift and still could call it an upgrade kit, because you still have pretty much everything that the first game had, plus more tracks, plus now you have like the whole drift mechanic in there.
Yeah.
For people just tuning in, the gray screen that you see in front of you is She Lion Gaming. She's currently driving, so I mean, she doesn't want to get a ticket, so that's why you see that there. But this is the voice of She Lion. Thank you so much for being here, She Lion.
Yeah, no problem. Glad to be here.
So we talked about this a little bit. I'm just trying to understand, how does something like this happen? Because a lot of people are saying stuff in the chat now, like, is this false advertising? And I started the show with talking about Big Buck Hunter. Big Buck Hunter advertises 4 games, but it's really only 2 games that has elements of all 4 games. So this is the first time it's happened. How come no one lost their mind about Big Buck Hunter?
It's true. Us as content creators and people that actually care this deeply to look at research, maybe wasn't looking at the hardcore differences between all 4 of those games. I was very new to the Buck Hunter series in general. So when I first got the cab, like I just assumed that, hey, there were just extra scenes, but all the gameplay from Pro versus Safari was the same. The girls are different between the two. That's the major difference, right? Got better outfits in Safari.
I'll throw a counterpoint out there. We were so mad about the obvious issues, such as the fact there's no light up marquee, the cabinet was a little
Exactly.
bit
It's
too
all
short. We didn't get into the fine hairs
yes.
filling apart like Fast and the Furious. Everything else looks so good that we really gotta, dig to find this dirt.
Yeah, it really takes somebody that I kind of cares to go do the research. And yeah, Travis was mentioning it, and when we saw the games list, we knew that. I mean, the cars list, that was the spark for me to start digging more into it. And my nostalgia for the franchise and playing those cars is what led me down this path to really look at the differences. Again, before this past week, I had not played those two games either. I could care less. I think it's just, yeah, I think the marketing, to your point, false advertisement, I'm feeling led down a path that doesn't feel quite right. I don't know what it is. I don't know what they can do to fix it at this point, because we know like what it is now. And I think there's just a weird sentiment about it. But the casual person that buys it for the first time probably won't care.
Yeah. It's $4.99
don't-
super
I
chat
don't
from our
think-
buddy Ezekiel, Chicago Retro Ranger. Hello to some of my favorite people. Ezekiel, you are awesome. Thank you very much,
He is
brother.
awesome.
Jade, sorry about that. I cut you off there.
No, it's okay. And Ezekiel is awesome. He's amazing. But hold on, let me regain my train of thought here. What were you saying, B?
I was talking about the nostalgia, and I don't know. We were talking about cars.
So
my God.
I'll go in a different direction. Then I'll change the conversation. So right now, people are saying,
false advertising. Sorry,
Oh,
false
yes.
Yeah.
advertising.
Yeah,
I don't think it can be classified as false advertising because they technically have, and I'm doing air quotations here, 2 games on there, and the games are, I mean, technically complete in form and working. You can choose between 2 different games. So however you want to like look at that, I don't think that really you could say it's false advertising. Is it misleading? Well, yeah, it's a little misleading because I think people are expecting to have.
So what's funny is we were talking about this earlier, Jade, and it's funny because all the tracks from the original Fast and the Furious are there. However, when you get to Fast and Furious Drift, from what I understand, the tracks from the original game aren't going to be in Drift. So it's weird because we're doing all this complaining about the Fast and the Furious, but in reality, Drift is going to be the neutered game because you lose all the tracks from the first game.
Yeah, driving a Saline or a Pontiac, whatever, on the old tracks is a drift thing.
Well, so that's the thing, though. Like, technically, you're right, but you're also wrong in the sense of because the tracks are just taken, like that whole portion of it is just taken out and then labeled as Fast and Furious. So it's everything.
Yeah.
It's the same game. It's Drift with just those 12 tracks, and that's what Fast and Furious is. And then Drift is just the 7 additional tracks. So that's literally like how it's done. But I mean, like I get what you're saying, and that's true. Like if you go to select Drift, you're only getting those 7 tracks. But in reality, you have 2 versions of Drift. You have a 12-track version and a 7-track version. That's like this most simple explanation.
Yes, that's the most accurate way to describe this. I mean, people kind of even said it. It was like split in half. No, it's kind of like split in whatever 7 divided by 2 is, or 12. Like it's 7 and 12, right? That's the 70% of the game is Fast and Furious Drift, and the other half. Yeah, 2 versions of Drift.
So Jade, I was asking you earlier about differences of the gameplay because obviously I don't know how this works, but 360 says you will also be able to drift on original tracks, and you weren't able to do that in the original game. There was no drifting element in the original game.
Jade, you might know more about this.
Like in the original Fast and Furious.
Yeah.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, no, the drifting came in like actually like the way that they do it in Fast, where it's kind of like what's it relatable to? Like if you played like Rage Racer, you can like drift really hard in that game. It's kind of like that, where you can just like slide around corners like really easily. And then I think there's like a drift meter or gauge or something like that. And so that was not in the first game. That's only a part of Drift. So that's correct. Yeah.
So I had to ask you, did you say Rage Racer?
Yeah.
Or no, because it's Rave Racer, not Rage Racer.
No,
Rage Racer is
no,
B Kong when I drove with him in Chicago.
No, there's Rave Racer, which was never ported like to any home consoles.
Oh, okay.
And then there's Rave Racer. If I already said that, that was the one that was only in arcades, never ported to consoles. And then there was Rage Racer, which came out on PlayStation, and it was like a souped-up version of Ridge Racer, and it was almost like a cross between Rave Racer. It's actually a really, really good game.
Okay, so we had another super chat here from Gallagher Guy 88. Is it more or less that Arcade1Up has misled a lot of people in the past? It seems like every cab they try to slip something by us, it keeps piling up. Thank you very much for the super chat. I don't know if that's necessarily the case. I just really quickly, we talked about it a little bit. How does this happen? That's kind of what I want to know, because I don't think Arcade1Up was trying to slip anything by them. I think that the response that I'm hearing is they were legitimately surprised by the information that came out on Game Time on Thursday, and also by your video, B. Like you said earlier, John didn't know about this, so like I
Some
don't
people
know
are surprised, but it sounds like the developers that like are making the game and things that get to marketing to do that next level, it's a layer of detail that's not being like owned up enough in the marketing side. So intentional, probably not. Like I don't know what to call it. I want to call it like
I would call it
lackadaisical.
incompetence is what I would call
I didn't
it.
want to say it, but it was like, it's like I don't know how they didn't think somebody was gonna find out about it, right? Like I don't think how they could release a cabinet
The
and not.
question is too, B, is like, do these people even know? Like, do they just have like a bunch of like fresh college grads working there who literally know nothing about video games except for like Among Us or something like that? Like, I feel like that's like part of the problem is they have nobody on the inside, with the exception of like some of the older people who actually know enough about video games and arcade games to be able to communicate at all these different levels, you know, or say something about some sort of internal issue that they're having with the game. Like I feel like that is very much lacking.
It does disappoint me quite a bit, because I will say, I mean, Arcade1Up has a fleet of beta testers at their disposal, like community resurgence of people willing to do free work for the company. On top of that, they have a assortment of YouTubers they're regularly in communication with extensive arcade knowledge that could help them out with this. How do they not use these resources to try to avoid some of these issues?
Yeah, the other thing that I think we've heard somewhere in the development cycle for a game from Arcade1Up that they usually start with the real version of the arcade, right? And so starting at that point, if they had both of them side by side, and whoever was like, if you're on marketing, if you're on a development team, if you're on a product licensing team, everybody should be like, let's just get familiar a little bit with it before we kind of go the way, and then we can tackle if this is the decision we had to make to do drift and port it into 2. Great, that's the game plan, but now everybody knows how we kind of market this and push it forward. You know, it just, whenever that decision happened, since it didn't get communicated to all parties, the launch of it, the way that it's been communicated in terms of what's been missing and calling it like what it isn't, that's the sour part. So, you know, I think they can use more people that are willing. I would love to see them eventually. And I know this is like an eventually like a moving forward, because we seem to be doing this a lot recently. This project probably was in development for years, right? That how early can this feedback be given, you know, about some of these before it gets to launch, to be able to make sure that we trust the process that they're giving us. I think I'm forgetting the guy's name. Who's the other guy that's in licensing with John D?
Cyrus.
I was like, Corey, no, it's Cyrus. Cyrus, when I talked to him in Vegas, he said there was like a new three phase, like 3 things that really get to Arcade1Up. And one of them, I think he was saying, was like authenticity. I think that was one of his like key things. He really was like, that's one of our core values. I forget what the other ones are, but that kind of that's your core value, right? I think using the research that you said from the beta testers, getting the real arcade cabinets in Miami or wherever, if you're going to be doing a launch, to do some at least comparison to here's the home version of these consoles, that could be a thing, right? Like maybe their screen is like shows the real arcade and be like, here's the home version of it, right? Like, I don't know. I think I'd be okay with that.
I'm not going to throw some defense up here, but I will also say how much of this is out of Arcade1Up's hands. I mean, this is Raw Thrill's property. This is a company they're working with who did the development and put all this together.
I think the issue is, though, when it comes to Arcade1Up, I think the issue is like that when you have like that kind of negligence at a product release, and I mean, things trickle up and down, but like when that is like it comes across very bad to your like consumer base when it's like, oh, well, we didn't even realize that this was going to happen or that this was going on. Like, well, why? Like, there's really no excuse for stuff like that to be happening internally, and to not know what's going on with one of your own products that's going to be released,
Papa Brad, thank you very much. Lots of justification going on here. It's called being objective and looking at both sides of the equation. So it's something some of us try to do.
I might lose. I'm sorry, I might lose you guys. I can hop back on my PC if you guys are gonna still be on.
Oh yeah, that'd be perfect. Thank you very much, Jade.
Thanks, Jade. I mean, how much more can you talk about? So what's the next thing? What do you think? Maybe let me ask you this, Mike. Where do you think they go from here now that they know about this? Is there a solution to
I think they're too far. I think they're too far in the development stage of the cabs. I mean, the cabs have already hit the port, so obviously, one, packaging's already done. They can't change that. The box is going to come out. It's going to say both games. Now, the good news is they can still work with. My God. Good news is they can still work with Raw Thrills and maybe modify the game and get the original tracks. And again, the cars, I think that's out of their hands. That's up to licensing, but they can get the original tracks and the original elements possibly.
I think the cars is the win.
But they can't get the cars. I mean, it's the same. It's the same. What if they can? How can they get the cars? They're going to put
right now from the drift side of cars, there's two companies that aren't on the drift lineup. It's the Mazda RX-7, RX-8, and the Dodge Charger and Dodge Viper. Those are the 4 cars missing from the drift lineup. So that's 2 companies that you could just add those 4. Like if you were to get them, if whatever possible, that would be that. So I'm just thinking pie in the sky. We're thinking, right? We're brainstorming. I know. Stop nodding your head. Like, listen to me for a second. Okay. So if they made this Fast and Furious Legends, here's what will make me happy. Just get at least 1 or 2 of the original cars from the original game, the Supra, the Eclipse, the RX-7, just those 3, if even, right? If you got the Mazda license for the other one, you could do the RX-7 for the original. Then I'm playing the original cars in the original tracks. Maybe the upgraded things is all better, but now you give some of the nostalgia back of those original cars. Like that would be, if my pie in the sky would be like solution, if they could, that's the easiest thing to insert into the game. All the tracks are already going to be there no matter what, but it's like, if I can get some of the original cars into that, it becomes this new game. And now you really do have some of that nostalgia back. So that would make me happy. That's just my pie in the sky solution.
I'm going to have a blood vessel burst right here because there's people that hate companies and just spout nonsense. So comments like, how can you add cars to a game if there's not a store model? Obviously, you can do updates. If they update the game, they get further licenses for cars. They can just add them in. I mean, it's called common sense here, people. No one said they were going to sell new cars. They said they would just add new cars.
No. It would just be in a future update. It would be the reason why it's Wi-Fi available is that you can update it and do a new version of the game with whatever, right? So
same with Arcade1Up. Didn't Arcade1Up add a game on Outrun? And now, before I criticize someone out there, I also want to say there's people out there with fake accounts that are trying to, besmirch the name of people. So if this is a fake account, like, Man, you suck. Stop using fake accounts. Grow up, people. Super chat, $5 USD. You can unlock cars if you complete levels. Can
In
you
the
unlock
original
cars if you
game,
complete
you
levels?
actually earned money. So each track you complete, you earned a certain amount of money, whether you place first through eighth or whatever, and then that stacks. And that key code for your saving progress, like each new car, I think was $1 million to unlock it. And I tried to do some online research about what those unlocked cars are. Hello, baby. But I didn't play the game long enough to unlock the cars. So yeah, the original game had 2 extra cars that you can unlock. I don't even know what they were. I don't think there's been much research for anybody that's played the real arcade game enough to care enough to unlock those 2 cars. And there's not a lot of Wikipedia information about those unlockables. But yeah, it makes it worth replaying that there's save states to be able to earn your money progress so that you can unlock cars. Not stages, just cars were the things you can unlock. And there was 1 car you can unlock on Drift.
Yes, for Nooner's asking, this is nostalgia after a shave.
Hello, mister. Is it bedtime?
It was
Goodness.
bedtime. He woke up. We will all end up with one anyways. Blitz again. Gallagher Guy 88 says, thank you for the super chat. Yeah, P-Dub said this earlier too. Whether or not it's the original game, not game, some people are going to buy it, and I bet you they have a bunch of fun. Like, honestly, there was a lot of things I didn't like about NFL Blitz. I didn't like the fact it wasn't authentic. I didn't like the fact it was that. But while I had it, I had a lot of fun playing with friends. And that was all that it came down to. I'm not saying it's great. I'm not saying Arcade1Up nailed it, because it's certainly not authentic in any capacity. But it was still fun, man.
Yeah, I agree. It'll be a fun experience for those that get it. Will people want to upgrade this to the buy stuff? I also seen that comment several times throughout the chats. I don't think it's going to be a good option to upgrade it to the buy stuff. And the reason why is Fast and Furious as an emulated game is a very hard game to emulate. So the good thing about the Outrun and the Ridge Racer mod kit that you do is that you keep the original games on your Ridge Racer cabinet, even though that's the PS1 version of Ridge Racer, not the Ridge Racer one, but Outrun, it's the main one. So when you have a marquee title, you want to keep the original game when you mod it and then play more stuff. So that's why I think it might be a little bit more difficult to do the Ridge Racer or the buy stuff kit mod, unless you go full PC. Full PC, but even then, the version of Technopair doesn't emulate that well. Good nights, baby.
Yeah, my wife had to come in. She had to step out for a second, so I had to do dad duty for a second.
All good.
1UP is getting all the OG cars, but they'll be EVs. Thank you for the super chat, Stringer Films.
But wouldn't that be a license? Couldn't from a licensing standpoint, couldn't they just add the stats for the car and do what they did with the Cruise and Wii port, and just bring them in? Really, just call it a Nissan Flyline and like all those things. They could do that. No.
I don't know how it would work. I mean, I think I want to bring this up really quick. Dan Z's here. Dan from St. Louis. Dan is awesome. He just turned 1 early last month.
Baby.
So on the 12th, he turned 1. So time flies pretty quickly,
more,
guys.
the baby or the cat?
Pardon?
Who poops more, the baby or the cat?
Cats. The cat's so much more.
Yeah. Has the baby pooped on top of your arcades yet?
No, not yet. Anyways, I do want to kind of put a pin in this pretty soon, because we talked about it for a bunch. And the purpose here tonight was to look at this from both sides. It's easy to just look at the negatives, kind of crap on it, but I kind of wanted to look at this playing devil's advocate and, take a real objective look at it. Is this situation where they've butchered one game to create 2 really that massive a deal? Is it that big a problem? Some people, 100%, yeah. Like if you're a big fan of it, or if you're the kind of person that you don't want anything unless it's the authentic game, then you're not getting it here. And Arcade1Up have done a poor job in representing what the product is you're buying. There's no way to escape that. Whether you want to say that it's crazy and that it's, they're committing, false advertising or whatever you want to say, that's your opinion. But in reality, what we have here is something that isn't necessarily false advertising, but it's certainly misrepresented. I think that's the fairest way to say it, isn't it, B?
I agree. I concur. Yeah. Yes.
All
misleading is the term that I use. Misrepresentation. All those misses. Misinformed. Yes, it's all of those misses.
My God, here's another person that's just trying to get attention. So, 360, who made a lot of really good comments tonight, keeps bringing up this thing about like how apparently I supported Blitz or something like that. B, do you remember when I was this huge fan of Blitz, advocating everybody should buy it, saying it was a perfect game and it wasn't that big a deal? Do
Yeah,
you
that it
remember
was going to
that?
be released during the Shack Jam. Like, yeah,
It,
you're full of all sorts of
it's crazy because I can remember all the times I complained about NFL Blitz. I complained about the side art. I said, this is not a game I'm super interested in because they're not doing what I believe Arcade1Up should do and have the authentic side art and make an arcade recreation. But I guess selective memory or something like that is the best way to do it.
Yeah, and I would say a lot of times what I see from you and other content creators, and many people will say that you at one time, Michael B, you were maybe Arcade1Up's favorite fan for all the arcades that you
No,
had.
don't do
And
that.
what's that?
Oh, I brought
Um,
up a comment by
oh
accident.
no, but I do think that most times all of us that cover the content try to cover both the bad and the good, right? And the conversation you're trying to provide is strictly a conversation. It's not a go out and buy it, you should buy it no matter what. Like that's truly
No
what
one
like
says
what
that.
yeah, nobody has ever said that on any stream ever. It's really opinion and it's conversation. And some of the narratives that people that cover this content, more than others, is always trying to say, buy it, go pre-order. I don't think that's something many of us have ever really said. That is just truly saying, go out and buy the product. It's more awareness, it's more food for thought, and hopefully people could eventually find a content creator that they've made enough information from to make a decision for themselves, right? Like it's not that big of a
Here's my
influence, I would say.
least favorite and least respected thing people do. And like I lose all respect for you as a content creator and an individual when you take things out of context and try to push a narrative that's going to prove your point. When did I say the Fast and the Furious side art on this cabinet was okay? Tell me one point in this conversation where I said that.
Yeah, that's the straw man, right? Just to try to
God.
I don't think anybody was saying it was okay. Yeah, it's just another point. It's a conversation. It's a conversation point.
Jade, I'm just getting angry now.
We could turn over to Jade so that we could all get out of here.
Whoops.
Are you back?
I'm a mess over here.
Oh,
No,
that's
you're
okay.
good.
Good times. Which way am I going? I don't know.
Well, like we were trying to tell people here in the chat that, one of the things that is important for most people as content creators is to be objective.
No,
Like-
it's to lie and go along with whatever makes everybody look
No,
like crap.
But we have to be objective. You have to look at things from both sides. You have to look at the good. You have to look at the bad. You can't just pick a side. You're either a YouTuber that's reviewing stuff or you're a marketing agency for a company. You choose which you want to be, because if there's a company out there that does absolutely nothing wrong, you're a marketing company, baby.
I think like one of the difficult parts about that too is like for YouTubers who go live and do like kind of like what you and B do, and sometimes I do, is that you interact with your audience a lot, and in this community it's a relatively small niche. I mean, like you have like a lot of concurrent viewers right now, but it's still a small niche.
Yeah.
And when you interact with your audience a lot, like it changes the perspective of everybody because they think that they're like having this interaction with you. So things can easily be construed, and people can take things that you say, run away with it, and before you know it, what you said is being clipped, and it's only a 5-second clip of what you said, and now it's being used or weaponized in a different way. So there's all these different factors that kind of play into it. I feel like I was thinking about this the other day. If I was just a review channel, like just only did like not review channel, but only did like video content with like reviews and like weird product hacks and stuff like that, I feel like it would be less what's the word I'm looking for? abrasive, or no, that's not it. But it would just be like my interaction with the
You would be
comments
more
section.
detached.
Yeah, you would be more detached. Exactly.
Mhm.
And that's like a big, I think, part of like the problem like in the home arcade space, is that there's all this like audience interaction, and it only takes like 2% of that audience interaction to like spin things out of control, or whatever. So
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to take it back because 360 is clarified, so I
He's a
apologize. He put hearts there, so I'm happy now. So he's a big fan of this series. Obviously, he's gutted because it has Fast and the Furious on the side, and that's not the game he's getting. I understand now. I completely understand where you're coming from. Sorry for the misconception and confusion, brother. I am also the kind of person that when I'm wrong, I'll tell you I'm wrong. And you know what? I'm wrong a lot.
You're just a passionate individual, man.
I am.
And like when I say he's passionate, man, he gets rough when you really get close to him. I mean, he tackled P-Dubs, took out his kneecaps
is
like
this more
nothing.
Chicago
If
talk?
anybody sees him in Cleveland, expect a tackle or a bear hug. So I mean, he likes to get a little.
I do
rough.
like hugs. Hugs are good.
But I do think, to just kind of wrap up what you were saying, Jade, and from content creator to content creator, I think many of us really still feel like we try to be as objective as possible. There might be some times where we like things more than others, and that's natural. You might see our preferences come out on camera in a discussion, a stream, a review or something, but it doesn't mean that like we're always all in on a particular product or something. I think there's a lot of like, you gotta be this or you gotta be that. And I think just like everybody has their highs and lows about most everything in life, but where can you find that balance? So I implore the chat and the community, for folks that are looking at content the same, don't put them into a bucket and say they're all of this or all of that. They all are a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. Is that my last little plea? Does that make sense?
Well, we do need somebody to blame. So I think
Oh,
that
yes.
we should just put ourselves out there so that, we can be like the scapegoats for whatever. Because that's what we all come into this thinking, is like, oh boy, I can't wait to shill this product and then just get curb stomped by everybody afterwards. Yay.
So I got a console fanboys asked this question a couple times. I don't know a perfect way to clarify this, but Mike or B and Jade, you're here now too. What is the difference between false advertisement and misrepresentation? Because that's a critical point here. Like if Arcade1Up was saying you were getting exact arcade accurate copies of the original game, I mean, that would be false advertisement, I assume. But misrepresentation is saying they have two separate games, when in fact they do have two separate games that are just versions that came out of, I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is for this here. Console fanboy, I'm not a lawyer. I could certainly go ask my wife, see if she's done with the baby, and see if she could give me a better explanation of what the difference is.
Yeah.
I think that for misrepresentation, that was pretty close. I mean, to me, when I think of false advertising, I think of like, I'm going to open up this box and get an arcade cabinet out of it, and then there's like just a granola bar in there. Like that's false advertising.
Completely something different. This is like, if you got into like legalness of it, right? They still have some grounds that this is a Fast and Furious. They never say anywhere 100% game accurate representation of said arcade cabinet. Like that's not on there. It's a game that is representative of the franchise. And then you have like nerds like us that actually dig into the details and spend hours the other night clipping pictures from an emulator. Like Jade, I can imagine, because you're one of the few in the community that have the real cabinet. So we're all looking forward to seeing what you have. And just to clarify, are you going to be doing a review on this cabinet?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just waiting on it to show up. It could show up. It's probably going to show up, like, honestly, because everybody on the East Coast, it's coming from the East Coast. And no, I haven't gotten a shipping notification or anything. But it's going out, I guess,
next week, right?
When everybody else gets theirs shipped out. And so it's coming from the East Coast. So whenever it starts hitting people on the East Coast, then I probably have like 3 to 4 days before it's even going to get to me. So it'll probably be a minute, because I'll probably spend at least 3 to 5 days with it.
So this is a great comment. I feel like the word technically is used in a lot of these one-up board meetings. So I think Arcade1Up probably had a meeting after all this information came out about it not being 2 games. And someone at the table actually did say that. What are you telling me? It's not 2 games? Well, technically. And
The conversation happened somewhere. Travis knew a lot of this, like he said weeks and months ago, and it didn't make sense to him because he wasn't familiar with the game. So like somebody knew something about this, and yeah.
Console Kids brought up a interesting comment earlier to me. He mentioned the fact that on the last, I think it was that one up show, they asked John, "Are there any more games coming out this year that are only 1-game cabs? Any more cabs that are coming out that are 1-game cabs?" And
true.
John kind of paused and went, "Maybe." So that's the thing. Did he mean maybe as in this one, or did he not know, or is there something else coming out? You can play devil's advocate and pick that stuff apart too if you want.
I mean, he definitely, I don't think knew that it was going to turn out this way. I mean, I don't like because I've been asking him for like a list of changes so that when I get the cab, like I have like all the like the factual information about like what was changed in development and stuff like that. Because I think it's going to be like really important to go along with this. And anyways, basically, he was just not he was not happy about it. And because he called me up and he's like, look, he's like, you know what? It's not what I thought it was going to be. You're getting this thing, like, be completely honest about it. Just be completely honest about it. He was just basically telling me like, do exactly what I said I was going to do, which is, I told him that I was going to be brutal on it if it's just not good. So, but I guess my point is just that like I really don't think he was aware of whatever the level is that's going on with it. And that's just my impression from interacting with him. Like I'm not trying to speak for him or defend him. I'm just saying, yeah.
Yeah, I would assume that they reached out to Rothrills. They worked on an agreement to make this cab. They said, "We want these 2 games." Rothrills came back and said, "Here you go." They made a box. They sent it off to the factory to go get it made. And they were like, "Hey guys, 2 games," and had zero clue that it was broke apart this way. And that's where we're to, I think. And that's not in defense. That's just trying to understand how something like this happens.
I'm already expecting that no matter what, like objectively, like no matter what, like there's going to be like 2 extreme sides to it. And then on the one side, like I'm just going to be taking a beating no matter what So I mean, I'm already like, I've prepared myself for that. And I'm like, I don't think I will ever do this again.
No, don't take it that way. I think you got a great opportunity. They're reaching out to you as an expert in the field. You're going to get critical feedback one way or the other. All of us experience it where, I'll get stuff like, I'm an iArcade shill, I'm an AtGame shill, I'm an Arcade1Up shill. Even got comments on Evercade videos before, like,
I heard you're a pinball channel now.
Yeah, I'm a pinball channel now. There's no way to control people who are going to have opinions of you anyways. Don't worry about having to answer to certain people in the community or go with their comments. Speak from the heart, do your true review, and that's the best way to do it.
And I think you've already established some credibility, Jade, of having the real cab. So I think that's where, for a person that's getting a review unit, it makes sense for really getting that feedback because you can do that comparison. So I'm expecting you to, make sure you drive a car on a track and then compare it to the Arcade1Up version and post your times, and then you're gonna review the car specs to make sure they're no, I'm just kidding. Like whatever you do, I'm really looking forward to your creativity because I know
I honestly feel like it's like I just can't take Arcade1Up as like an arcade cabinet, like they're just not arcade cabinets. Like are they like this product that you buy on a platform and it's very much has like that arcade feel to it? Like, sure, like, but it's just like when you get like really into the weeds of it and people really want to compare it to like an arcade cabinet, it's like, come on, like, it's never gonna, their products are never going to be coin ops. Like, they are a like small solution that you can put, you know, in an apartment or your house, and you can have a lot of them. And it's just, I don't know.
They're a cheap collectible toy version of arcades,
yeah,
meant to recreate the arcade experience at a lower cost, but they're also lower quality. Jay, this is the point where we break out the what is it, underworld meme of the vampires all sitting up on the bench, you know, looking pride and prim down. They're the real arcade owners looking down at the Arcade1Up owners.
peasants.
So before we end, I just wanted to say, you know, we've slaughtered this thing. We looked upon it. There's lots of reasons why it's done. Obviously, people that have, you know, hopes to get the real versions of the Fast and Furious, these are going to be different. They're a modified, ported version coming from Raw Thrills. But like we stated, it is Raw Thrills making them. The experience should still be very good. It's just not going to be arcade accurate. Question then comes, is it appropriate for Arcade1Up to say they have 2 games here? Did the same thing with Big Buck Hunter. They listed 4. There's really only 2 games. So that's a question of, is this appropriate to misrepresent the number of games on the cabinet? But really, at the end of the day, I think it's going to be fun. I think some people are going to get it. They're not going to care. They're just going to say, this is a badass racing experience. Raw Thrills did a really good job with this. I'm going to link it up with this other cab I bought here. 19K Fox has bought 20 of these with Best Buy coupons. I can't wait to see his reviews. And I'll kind of move on from there because there's something else I want to talk about, go out on a funny point. And I just got to see if I can bring this up. You guys talk amongst yourself for a minute.
While you do that, so what they should do now with every single cabinet they release, they should include a pink slip to that Fast and Furious cabinet so that when you race somebody, you're actually racing for slips.
Yeah,
right?
I like that. Get that title.
I get your cab, or you owe me a 10-second cab, right?
Get that title.
Yeah.
So I got to bring this up on screen really quickly here, guys. So I don't know if you've seen this. I got to get this ad off the screen. God damn it. What kind of people put ads on like YouTube videos and stuff? Jeez.
The other element that I'm really looking forward to that you can't get to, Jade, is the online connected play, right? So, the peer-to-peer, whatever, head-to-head that they do, like that will be another big make or break feature that will be like, hey, this is the next bar. Once we can get past this whole debacle of the naming convention, it'll be, does it actually play well? Which that's the true test.
So, guys, I got to show you this. Someone asked about this. I got to ask you, did you hear about the Newfoundland
is that real?
Shaped iceberg? That's so, yes, this is a real thing. There's currently an iceberg.
Can you zoom in on that?
Yep, I can. There's currently an iceberg floating around Newfoundland and Labrador, the island that I live on, that looks exactly like this. So what's funny about it is everybody's saying it looks like a male member. All I see is nostalgia. I just see a big nostalgia iceberg that just floats around the island.
I was literally going to say, did you guys name it the nostalgia? Because that sounds like something you guys would do.
And so the funny thing is, what is that plant again, B? I always send you that in Messenger. What is that one?
The nice little eggplant.
Eggplant. So the actual name of this iceberg, believe it or not, what it's being called in the news and here locally is it's being called the Dickieberg.
Sorry, it's not hairy enough to be nostalgia. That's all I'm going to say about that.
No,
but
nostalgia. It's a mess down there. You can't see anything.
Oh.
Man, can you imagine if Nostalgia ever got a Manscaped sponsorship? That would be amazing, wouldn't it?
He did, but he couldn't pimp it because the Manscaped couldn't take care of his problems.
Hoy.
Anyways,
well then,
guys. Yeah.
This is a fun stream. Thank you very much for having us on, Michael B. I'm really hungry. I need to get some dinner in me. So thanks so much.
Guys, thanks again. And I apologize. I'm sick. I got a little angry. I try not to. Sometimes it's just all so much. I wish people in the community could calm down. Like we're talking about toys and fun. Try to have fun. Don't be so jumping on other people and critical of other people and trying to make content about other people to get attention. Have fun, be young, drink Pepsi, and last but not least, be excellent to each other. How about that?
Rock on,
Be
dude.
excellent.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Thanks.
I got to remember where my video is to go out. We're still live. I'm sorry.